Hi and welcome to the Firefly Adda, your virtual conversation starter, a platform where we talk about thought leadership, diverse topics, deep insights, and some good learnings at the end of it all. In today's episode, we bring to you one of the leading counseling psychologists, Saloni Mira Chaudhary from Reboot Wellness. Hi, Saloni, and welcome to the Firefly Adda.
Hi, Kushagra. It's a pleasure. I'm always excited to talk about mental health, so thank you for having me.
Great. I think this is a very opportune moment when I'm actually getting to talk to you, especially during these adverse times and the lockdown periods. I think
Right.
it's like a blessing in disguise for a lot of us to hear you out and understand the mental aspects and how to actually keep the mental game strong. So that is a topic of discussion for today, and we'll just have a quick one-on-one discussion and see what we can actually bring out in terms of some insights and some good learnings for our viewers. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yes.
to begin with, I think the most relevant or the most important question, because we've been under a lockdown, and this is not something which comes that easily to us humans, and it's been over a month since we've actually gotten into a lockdown sort of a scenario, and we've
Right.
actually totally gotten into a scenario where there's complete social isolation and keeping away from people and being locked down, not being able to talk to friends and being socialized, so not being able to get out, and for extroverts particularly, it actually is something which sort of hurts them in a way. So what is it that actually goes on in an individual's mindset when somebody is sort of locked down? So can you throw some light around that?
Yeah. So I think first of all, it's important to acknowledge that it's a completely uncharted territory. It's an unprecedented situation, and nobody knows what to do about it. So we don't have a manual to operate from, right? And it's impacting us in so many ways. Everybody has a unique challenge right now. Some are isolated entirely alone. They don't have any human interaction around them. Some of them have young children in the house. Some have teenagers. Some have pets. Some have elderly to take care of. So, for everybody, it's a unique challenge. And it's interesting that you talk about social isolation, and we've been hearing it a lot, social isolation and distancing. I would say it's more of physical isolation and distancing and not social, because we are still connected, online and virtually. And I think this is an opportunity to reconnect with people online and strengthen those bonds and kind of revisit how we are used to connecting online, because most of our interaction is very surface level and shallow. And now that the real world interaction is completely stopped and it has moved online, it's a good idea to kind of, as I said, revisit how we are used to interacting online and change that, have more meaningful conversations and have more rich and deep conversations. Because if we don't have that, people who are completely alone, let's start with them, they might just start feeling extremely lonely, can lead to loss of self-esteem, can lead to anxiety and even depression eventually. So this is for people who are completely alone, or for people who are in unhealthy family environments right now, because we're hearing that a lot as well.
So
What Yeah.
So you did mention about connecting virtually. So I mean, most of us are sort of gadget users, and more or less we're sort of used to it, but not to a degree or an extent that we're actually seeing right now. So do you think this is a one way or medium that people have to embrace, and this is the new normal going forward?
Yes, yes, absolutely. This, you said it right. It has to be embraced in a way that we get used to it as our new normal, because we don't know when we will be going back to our idea of normal anytime soon. So being I think this is the time to build our listening skills more, because right now we are not used to actual conversations online. We're just used to the normal text messages and emojis and hey, what's up, surface level conversations. This is a time to build deep meaningful conversations online, actually reaching out to people and asking how they're doing, discussing your challenges, asking them about their challenges. And as I said, listening skills, we're used to, like, this is a generation that's used to liking the response. Like, we receive a message and we like it.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Hmm.
Right? So that's not real listening skills. And if you're talking about moving our entire social interaction online, we need to revisit that and review that for ourselves.
Right. And now that brings me to a point about anxiety. You spoke about anxiety. So anxiety, fear, emotional distress. Now these are a few of the facets which people have to sort of sort of adopt, and maybe this is something which will be predominantly seen in a lot of people. Now, how does one actually sort of overcome these sort of negative emotions and stay calm during these periods and beyond this? So can you throw some light around that?
Yeah. So I think the first step towards managing anxiety is to understand what anxiety is as an emotion. What is an emotion? It has a cognitive aspect to it, which means that I'm thinking something in my head when I'm feeling anxious. And then there's a physical aspect to it, which means I'm feeling something in my body. There's a physiological arousal when I'm anxious. So maybe uneasiness in the stomach, tightness in the chest, the shoulders, breathlessness, all these physiological, feelings. So, from an evolutionary perspective, whenever we sense threat in our environment, our nervous system triggers the fight or flight response, as we know, right? And it's funny because we're only used to the acute stress and not chronic stress like this. Like this, COVID is a chronic
Mhm.
stress. It's going to go on for a while. And so the approach to dealing with the chronic stress is going to be different. So in an acute stress situation, our body is going to release a lot of energy because it's prepping us to fight or flee. And the a lot of blood is rushing to the limbs, and just prepping us for action. But it's not an acute stress situation. So we need to calm our minds by telling it that, okay, we are taking some action, we are doing something, because a lot of energy is being produced. So what we can do is, so there are two things that we can do. One is problem focused way. That is, what are the things that we can actually do to problem solve the situation? What are the things that we can control, and what are the things that we can't really control, but we can manage the emotion bit of it? As I said, the physiological arousal and what we are thinking. So I'll start with the problem solving bit. The first thing we can do is focus on things that we can control. So here there are three things to talk about. One, things I can control, things I can influence in a certain way, and things that I can't really control or influence, but I can be concerned about at a global level. So, for example, I'm concerned about the virus spreading, people losing jobs, and daily wage earners not earning enough.
Hmm.
But I can't do anything about it. I can't control it. I can be concerned about it, but I can't control it. I can influence it by not stepping out of the house. I can make sure that I am safe. I can contribute to organizations that can help those daily wage earners. So these are the ways I can kind of influence it, but I can't control it. So for myself, setting that boundary and making that distinction that, okay, these are the things I can control, these are the things I can just influence, and these are things I can just be concerned about,
Hmm.
is very important. Next, yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So next thing would be to have a sense of routine and structure to our day, because right now a lot of people don't have anything to do. Some of us are working from home and having classes online.
Yeah.
Some of us absolutely are in a mess. There is no sense of structure, and our everyday routine kind of gives us a sense of self and a sense of purpose. So if we don't have that, it can mess with our heads eventually. So it's a good idea to have a wake up and sleep routine. Have our meals roughly around the same time. Have a to-do list to do throughout the day. People who have work from home, they can probably structure it better. But people who don't, for them, they should kind of find something to do, enhance their skills, go online, find courses that they can take up. There's so many platforms that are offering free courses right now: Coursera, edX, even Howard University. So many of them. So keep yourselves busy, and then it is then that you will be able to feel a sense of control, at least in a day and in your life.
So I
um,
think you spoke about the best practices and a few habits here and there. So what is the importance of taking breaks? I think routine is important, but I think as we actually embrace working from home, staying at home, we actually get into a tendency of overdoing certain things, being in front of the machine all the time, straining our eyes. So what is the importance of taking breaks, and at what intervals ideally people need to take breaks? I think that's a very important aspect that people have to sort of adopt, right? So isn't that the case?
right. So at home it can get a little muddy, right? The boundaries
Hmm.
that we had at work, the times that we take a tea break, at 4 o'clock or at 11 o'clock in the morning. we can try to stick to those routines and take those breaks as is. And
Hmm.
especially tech boundaries are very important right now, because with work from home, even our bosses or our managers kind of lose track of
Hmm.
how much work is being given, and
Yeah.
all that. So we can discuss that with our superiors, and we can kind of create that boundary. And for managers, I think it is very important to make sure that the employees don't get overburdened with work, and deadlines are such that it's aligned with what it used to be earlier, and the line is not muddied.
So you're saying that these best practices and habits are very fluid, and it actually depends from an individual to individual, and there is no one fixed formula for anyone to actually sort of adopt and sort of roll on. Is that what you want to say, or do you have something which is actually fixated that somebody can actually sort of generalize, or a generalized template, as you may want to call it, and follow it? So is there some sort of general guidelines that people can actually follow?
So I'm talking about managing anxiety.
Yeah, in the sense managing anxiety and making sure that their day-to-day sort of activities get sort of executed, being more productive, feeling that sense of accomplishment in a given day. I think that is very important, because staying at home, not interacting with many people, can actually sort of drain you out. So is there
Right.
some sort of a framework that you can maybe sort of position, or a template that you can position, that people can actually sort of follow, and get that sense of accomplishment at that given day, feel productive at that given day? Because like you mentioned, a lot of us who have work from home kind of jobs, keep ourselves busy, but there are certain people who don't. So I think, are there any sort of tips for those kind of people who don't really have a structured routine or a job?
Right. So as I said, that you can form a structure. It's a good idea to have a to-do list to do through the
Hmm.
day and kind of check it off at the end of the day, because our mind likes structure. It
Hmm.
likes some sort of control.
Hmm.
What we can do is we can create short-term goals in a day, so that at the end of it we can review it, and kind of we can receive that feedback loop. Because at the end of the day, our mind works on the reward system. It needs some short of dopamine, that okay, I accomplished this at the end of the day. So creating short goals, maybe weekly goals or daily goals, are very important, so that you can tick off things off the list. Also, when I was speaking about connecting with people, our everyday connections also give us a sense of identity,
Hmm.
which means that my self image and my sense of self is reflected in others. So my everyday interactions, what people around me think about my skills, my capabilities, adds to my self image. And if I'm not connecting with people, I'm not going to work. When we go to work, we interact with 3 4 people around us, our colleagues.
Hmm.
Right now we just focused on our work.
Yeah.
So it's important to connect with our colleagues, also get that sense of engagement, so that, because eventually you're talking about how isolation can affect us. It can also affect our sense of identity and self. So it's very important in a day to connect with people, to get that sense of engagement, and create small goals for ourselves, so that that feedback loop is on, and we get a sense of reward at the end.
And impacts of maybe being fit, focusing on fitness, maybe yoga, flexibility, and meditation. So your thoughts around that?
Absolutely, there's no two ways of saying that. We cannot deny the importance of physical movement. I think some people, when they think about physical movement, they only think about rigorous workout routines and gym routines. But I think, don't restrict yourself by these ideas. There's so much that you can do. I know so many people who don't like to run, or they went to a
Yeah.
yoga class and they found themselves not being too flexible, so they develop that mental block towards
Hmm.
it. There's so many things that you can explore. You can do yoga, jogging, spot jogging,
Hmm.
aerobics, freestyle dancing. So many things that you can do. I think it's easy to say and kind of preach that engage in physical activity. But why I'm talking about these mental blocks is that people know they're supposed to do it, but
Hmm.
still they don't do it. Everybody knows it's important, but right now it is even more important, because it also kind of adds to your immunity. Your sleep becomes better, which again adds to your immunity and equips you with handling anxiety better. So engaging in yoga, in aerobics at home is very, very important. There's so many apps right now that are offering like free sessions and free courses. It's a good time to probably enroll.
So from a nutritional standpoint, any sort of tips to any healthy eating habits to keep your mind energized and fit for the day?
So I think immunity boosting foods are absolutely important right now. I see people stocking up on junk food more right now, like Maggie and all
Yeah.
these instant noodles, packed foods more. But I think that will really be, bad for your immunity. You should stick to. I know it's difficult to procure fresh fruits and vegetables right now, but stick to foods that are easy to cook and that would give you instant energy, but are also healthy, like nuts or fresh
Mhm.
fruits or home cooked foods and not packed foods.
Okay, great. Now you are associated with Reboot Wellness, so I think our viewers here would be really keen to understand what Reboot Wellness is all about and what kind of services you really offer. Any private counseling sessions that people can look forward to. So can you shed some light around that?
Yeah, so as I'd mentioned earlier, I am a counseling psychologist with Reboot Wellness. We are a counseling and de-addiction center in Gurgaon, and we are a team of experienced and trained psychologists, therapists, peer recovery coaches, psychiatrists, and we work towards mental health awareness and making sure that counseling and therapy reaches as many people as possible. So we are conducting online sessions. We are doing online counseling and therapy via video call, audio call, email, and chat even. So you can reach out to us on our website, that is www.reboot-wellness.com. And you can also reach out to us via different social media handles. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook by the name of Wellness. I think Kushagra, you can add some of these details in the description as well.
Sure, will do. So you spoke about de-addiction and lockdown, and a lot of people who are addicted to substances like maybe smoking or maybe alcohol. So I mean there is a scarcity of that, and the availability of such substances is not really that easy to procure or get from stores. Now how does one person really cope up and override on the urge of either going out and having a fag or having a drink when it's not readily that
Right.
easily available? So how can somebody who is sort of really addicted to such substances cope up during these situations?
Yes. So
Yeah.
we have been receiving a lot of distress calls related to this because a lot of people who were in the process of addiction recovery, they were going to support group meetings, but group meetings are not happening right now because of the lockdown. A lot of people who are addicted and who are wanting to quit, you know, it's been really bad for them, and
Hmm.
they have been experiencing a lot of withdrawal symptoms for which we are getting a lot of calls too. So I think a good thing to do would be to reach out to a professional. Don't hesitate to seek professional help. We also, have a psychiatrist. We do take cases like that for counseling and for medication.
Hmm.
So yes, I think this is a tough time for people who are going through addiction recovery or are addicted, and I would say that don't hesitate to seek professional help.
So, Saloni, you spoke about social isolation. So, are there any additional sort of pointers around social isolation that you would want to maybe talk about?
Yeah, so like I was talking about how we should be connected online and not treated like social isolation but more like
Hmm.
physical isolation.
Hmm.
So we need to be connected online.
Hmm.
uh, Prolonged effects of isolation can be kind of detrimental for us. We might begin to lose our sense of empathy, which is how we connect with others and how we take social cues, right, and how we understand the emotions of others. So if we lose touch with people entirely, we might begin to lose that,
Hmm.
and that's not good for our social interactions. uh, One more thing that prolonged social isolation can do is kind of make us lose our sense of internal locus of control, which means that how much control can I exert on my life outcomes. So for example, if I get promoted and I operate from an internal locus of control, I would think that I worked really hard and I got promoted. But if I operate from an external locus of control, I would say that, oh, maybe my company had more budget and they promoted me, so I'm giving the credit to something else. So prolonged isolation can make us lose this internal locus of control, such that we start believing that life is doing things to us. I have no control over my life. And that can lead to a sense of helplessness and hopelessness, which is a scary place to be in our
Hmm.
mind. So it's very important to be constantly connected, and so that we don't get this feeling. We might end up feeling that people are getting to us and they have negative feelings towards us. So whenever we feel that such feelings are kicking in, it's a good idea to be aware. because right now a lot of changes in our emotions and moods are going to happen. So just being aware of what we are feeling and is there a negative shift is a good idea.
Okay. And from an emotional relaxation perspective, so do you have some pointers, or something that you would want to maybe talk from that perspective?
Yes. So, we can, there are so many things that we can do to relax our body and mind. As I was saying, that emotion is more like is related to our body as well, and not just the thought.
Hmm.
So, once we are done with the control bit, we can control our structure, day routine, and everything. But still, we feel anxious, and we feel that there's some stiffness in my body, or I'm still feeling too overwhelmed. I can go for these relaxation techniques. So one of them is guided muscle relaxation, wherein I kind of relax different muscle groups of my body. You can find audios for that on YouTube and on these mindfulness apps as well.
Hmm.
You just find a comfortable place in your room and just put on that audio and just go with the guided meditation and guided relaxation. It will ask you to kind of tense different muscle groups of your body and then slowly release them such that all the tension in the body is released. And since our body gives a feedback to our mind, once the mind feels that the body is relaxed, it eventually starts to feel more relaxed. So there are a couple of apps that you can check out. There's Calm, there is Headspace.
Hmm.
You can check these out. They have really nice audios. Another thing that you can do is, if you don't want to actively engage in this entire process of emotional de-stressing, you can just put on a very calming audio and goes off to sleep just to relax the body. That really helps. Another thing that you can do is find a calm and silent corner in your room, sit and do deep breathing. Deep breathing is so important. I think when we feel stressed and anxious, we feel a lot of tightness in the chest and the abdomen, and when you do deep breathing, it kind of releases all the tension from the body. So again, you can find audios on these apps online to help you with guided breathing if you're a beginner, and I think these can be really helpful.
Sure. So one key takeaway that the audience here can actually have. So these are tough times for all of us. So something that a good motivational takeaway that you can actually sort of provide to the audience, which can actually sort of inspire them.
Yes, so I think one key takeaway would be to treat this time like a lag time, like a liminal space where we can, where a lot is possible. So I understand that it's a difficult time for a lot of us, and maybe a lot of us are in unhealthy family environments, as you were talking about addiction, and they're going through difficult times. But still, people who can make the most of it, they should see it as a bonus time where they can reconnect with people, where they can strengthen bonds, where they can build on skills, fix things, reconnect with family. uh, I don't think we're going to find this much time with
Mhm.
our families
Yeah.
again. So it's a good time to reconnect with our families, and a lot of us have disagreements and conflicts within our families. I think it's a good time to initiate a conversation and fix that as well.
Great. So, Saloni, thank you so much for making it to the Firefly Adda. I'm sure the audiences here have got some great insights. Thanks once again, and for giving us a perspective on how to keep the mental game going. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.